Hey y'all, this is Bryan and Steven with Breven Homes. We are a custom home builder in the Texas Hill Country, and we are starting this podcast series because we have found a huge gap in the knowledge and information that's out there with regards to the custom home building process in general. So uh, we're excited to start this and share with you our knowledge and our learnings and our mistakes along the way. There's been plenty thus far, but we're looking to share any and everything so that we can help you in your journey building a custom home. So, Stephen, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself and talk a little bit more about our company?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Like you said, I'm Steven, and yeah, we created this company, Breven Homes, a little over 2 years ago. Actually, we're coming up on 3 years. And Breven Homes is a design and custom home building company here in Central Texas, focused on areas west of Austin and north of San Antonio. So really kind of in Texas Hill Country area. Beautiful area, but yeah, we love what we do. And, that was part of the reason why we wanted to create this podcast to provide more value to not only the listeners, but future homeowners for us as well. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, with that being said, yeah, a little bit more about my background. We both, our father we grew up in a home where our dad was a construction manager for a home building company here in Texas. And so that got our feet a little wet. We dipped our toes into that home building world as kids and grew up around that. And then after we both graduated from the University of Texas, we both were very involved in home building. So that progressed, and I worked for a production home builder for a little while, got some reps there, and we both combined our talents to start this company.
That's awesome. It's been fun, but we got a lot more to do, a lot more to accomplish.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely
So
been fun though.
yeah, so we've alluded to a little bit about why we've started this, but let's elaborate on that a little bit more. Why are we starting this podcast? I mean, what are we
Yeah,
trying to provide?
absolutely. Yeah, that's the ultimate question, right? And why are we starting this podcast? And I think basically, as we've been in this industry, and especially the custom side of things, over the past 2+ years, we've really seen a gap in just available knowledge and information on future homeowners, how they even start the process. How do I search for a custom home builder? How do I know that I'm finding a good one, right? And what are the different kinds of contracts? And, what's the process of building a custom home? There's so many different things that people just don't know and don't talk about. And, I think you and I, maybe we can both agree that we just almost think that it's common sense, but it's really not. We've been around it for so long that it's something that we feel like we need to educate listeners and other people that are interested in building a custom home, just so that they are well informed and don't feel like they're getting taken advantage of, which unfortunately a lot of people do end up feeling that way.
Yeah, and you talk about getting taken advantage of. I think you'll hear over many of the podcasts that we create. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into making that decision of who do you trust, the keyword being
Yep.
trust to build your home. So
Hmm.
you'll hear that word many times, but it's really important, and hopefully we can give you some insight into and some information and the right questions you can ask your builder uh, to to feel more comfortable with that trust piece. So
Yep. I love that.
who
I
is this
love that comment.
podcast for? I mean, who are we try who do we want to have our listeners be?
Yeah. That's a really important question for us to determine at this point, right? And so people can get a feeling for if this podcast is something for them or not. And yeah, I think our target audience is going to be somebody who is, slightly interested or extremely interested in building a custom home, right? And I specify it to primarily custom homes because the process is so much different than just building a production home or being involved in a build with a production builder. There's not nearly as many decisions that need to be made, and usually the production builders have systems, processes, procedures that are very, very set. So that kind of rules that listener out, I would say. But our target listeners, I would project, would be people that are, like I said, anywhere from slightly interested in custom home building all the way up to people that are ready to build or have already built a custom home. Just people that are seeking more information on that front. And I think we can make the differentiation now that, this podcast isn't going to be something that is going to be in the weeds on building science. It's not going to talk about the best waterproofing membranes on the outside of your home. As while some people may care about that, we think that there's a huge gap in the market on people just knowing more about, like we said, selecting a custom home builder and the whole process, and the budgeting aspect of it and other things that come with building a custom home, and leaving the building science up to the custom home builders that you've hired to do the job, right? That's what they should specialize in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we have found that there's a lot of great material, great podcasts out there, great individuals that do a really good job explaining construction science and breaking it down and not getting too technical. So,
Yep. Yeah, that's a
um,
great point.
we do want to share a lot of information, what we hope is valuable information throughout every single podcast that we publish. Where can this be used? I mean, where can it be used? Do they have to be in Central Texas? What are the differences between Central Texas, where we are, and the rest of the country?
Yeah, our idea for this podcast is to be universal, right? We're not going to narrow it down so much or niche it down to a certain market that it rules out listeners that are listening, say in North Dakota, right? Um, or even California, Florida, all different aspects or points of the United States. We want to make this podcast so that it can um, really help people no matter where you live, what state you're in, whatever municipality or governing bodies are responsible for your custom, the area you're building a custom home in. We really want to make it universal. I think that's the best word for it. So, although we have our experience and, we're going to be talking maybe a few specifics of Central Texas, overall, we're going to have many valuable nuggets that people can take away that they can use in their own hometowns or wherever they want to build their custom home.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. And regardless of who you choose to build your custom home anywhere in the country, the process is the process. It might
Mm-hmm.
differ slightly based off of, like you mentioned, the municipality, but you still have an idea or your dream home in your head, and you still have to get it all the way to completion, where you have this beautiful home in front of you and you've taken over the keys, right? So while some things may differ, there's a lot of commonality across the country, but just a lack of information that we
Yep.
want to get out to anybody that wants to listen and find value in it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
what should our users expect to take away from our podcast? I mean, what's some of those valuable insights that they can take away?
Yeah, definitely something we've thought long and hard about. We don't want to pump out content that wastes, our listeners' time. So we want to make it as value packed and useful information as possible. And with that being said, we think that the key takeaways from our podcast are going to be just more knowledge overall, and a more basically future homeowners or clients that are about to sign building contracts feeling more confident about the process because they're more educated, they're more knowledgeable, and they don't feel like there's so many unknowns, right? We're going to be a resource that they can refer back to on certain aspects of their build. And as they're going through the timeline, they can listen to our podcast over and over, reference them, maybe even bring them up with their own builder, if there's questions or conflict or anything like that. We hope to be a source of unbiased third party knowledge that they can take and use as they please, right? And really just keeping it very matter of fact. We don't want any opinions thrown into it, and really opening people's eyes to, well, even the people that are, like we said, slightly interested in building a custom home. Is it right for you? Maybe it's not even the right process for you. Maybe you feel more comfortable going with a production builder or buying a pre-existing home. So we'll talk through that as well and give the people information to make the most informed decision, every step of the way.
Yeah. And I like what you said. There's custom home building isn't for everybody, and understanding the the costs, the expectations, what it entails as early as possible will help people that say, hey, this isn't for me, make that decision sooner rather than later. So,
Absolutely.
man, I'm really excited. I've got a lot of ideas in my head. There's so many topics. I mean, you talk about the differences in cost per square foot when you get multiple quotes from builders, and how do you compare one versus the other? I mean, that could be a several hour long podcast, maybe several day long podcasts, just talking through that one question, albeit not simple, but a question that is asked every single day to every single builder. So
Yeah.
my head's spinning on all kinds of topics, and we certainly look for that listener feedback. If there's something you want us to talk about, we'll be all over it. So we want this to be a two-way street, and again, as much value as we can provide you is our ultimate goal.
Yeah, great points. And yeah, just to reiterate that yeah, this is all about the listeners. And so if they want to hear a topic that we mentioned in passing and want to hear more details or even things that we haven't thought of, please feel free to bring them to our attention. And we'd love to dive deeper into them and talk about those kind of topics on this podcast, because this is ultimately for those listeners that want to learn more about the process of building a custom home.
Well, we'll wrap it up here, but one last question, an accountability question for both of us. What's our goal of our frequency of pumping these episodes out?
Yeah. Yeah. They're hearing it first here that, yeah, this is going to be a weekly podcast. So, we'll record weekly, and not sure exactly what day those will be posted yet, but it's going to be something that we're going to try to keep between probably 20 and 25 minutes, to be able to listen to on your morning commute or, during your morning coffee or whatever it is, right? Listen to our podcast, gain some knowledge, and then go on with your day. We're going to try to keep it as concise and straight to the point as possible, just so that we pack as much information into each episode, but also keeping it very segmented so that you can easily reference back to what you need to look at while you're building your custom home.
I love it. Time is value, time is money. So with that
That's
being
it.
said, we'll call it an end to episode number